These past few weeks, an invasion of green and yellow squares have taken over social media feeds worldwide, all of them advertising the same strange name: Wordle. If you're not aware, Wordle is a digital word game, playable straight from your desktop or mobile browser. The aim is, in 6 attempts or less, to guess a 5-letter word. A player must input a real word each attempt, and those green and yellow squares feedback how close they are to the hidden answer. Yellow means a correct letter in the wrong order, whilst green is in the right place. That simplicity in execution is a major reason for Wordle's explosive success, whilst another reason is that invasion of squares. Cleverly, Wordle generates a grid of emojis that players can paste into an email, text message or Twitter post, allowing them to show off their attempts without giving away the answer. This is important, as everyone, everywhere, is guessing the same word. For those in the know, those squares are a window into the success of their peers. For those that aren't, it's an invitation for explanation. Finally, a sense of ritual has given Wordle its staying power. Every midnight, Wordle generates a new word, and players only have 24 hours and 6 attempts to guess it. As such, driven by competition, a habit forms of completing the daily Wordle. One day a player might be the Nostradamus of Wordle, able to eke out an answer in 1 or 2 guesses. Others, a player may strike out, or get angsty with a 5-letter word they didn't know existed. Wordle has created its own water cooler culture, in a year where most of us are stuck working from home. That invasion of green and yellow squares is a signifier for those playing the hottest game in town. It's the same kind of signifier that makes a game like Wordle entirely possible. By that, I mean a game built around language. That thing we use every day to communicate with each other. Wordle's simple design makes it a great candidate to talk about the overlooked genre of word games. Think titles like Boggle and the grandfather of all word games, Scrabble. You're not expected to know button sequences or camera manipulation to play a word game. Instead, your successes are based entirely on your command of language. The genre is a fascinating topic because it gets to the heart of how all games work, whether they be digital, paper-based, or governed by collective agreement. The Magic Circle is a game design term which describes how games make a liminal space that turns normal people into players. Salin and Zimmerman define it as an area of free movement with a more rigid structure than the everyday. In a computer game like Geometry Wars, a player agrees to shoot waves of enemies until either the board is cleared or they become totally overwhelmed. In a tabletop role-playing game, a player inhabits a character whose physical attributes are tied to static numbers and dice rolls. In a way, our own bodies are not. How then does the Magic Circle apply to word games? Well, we bring in an element of the everyday, our language, and then apply rules that contextualize when and how we can use it. In Wordle's case, a player is asked to eke out a 5-letter word like a code breaker, adjusting their answer each time until they find the hidden word or fail all 6 attempts. In Scrabble, each player is given a handful of random letters and asked to create words of any length. Rather than guessing a correct word, players make points based on the value of tiles in a word and their position on a gridded board. Boggle asks a player to generate as many words as possible from 16 randomly generated letters under a strict time limit. They all work under a similar rule set. What words you can make are limited by resources or time. As such, to do the best, players have to apply a strategy to something mundane. This is the magic of the Magic Circle, and word games in particular. With a few rules, something we take for granted becomes as important as a plasma rifle in a first-person shooter. In Wordle's case, this leads to the phenomenon of power words. 5-letter phrases that contain all the major vowels and consonants so players can more quickly get to the right answer. You might not say arise, colts, or a do every day, but in Wordle, there's silver bullets. Scrabble 2 will require a player to strategize how to get the most valuable words out of letters they may rarely enunciate. X, Q's, and Z's, for example. That's not to mention its competitive and cooperative nature that requires using other people's words to make brand new words, like roads off intersections. To me, what's most interesting about word games is how they are shaped by the people playing them. Almost all games have players start at ground zero, and use rules to get everyone to a similar level. What then separates players are their ability to intuit patterns, hand-eye coordination, and competitive spirit. But a word game player is more greatly shaped by their outside influences, their age and their experiences. A young child is unlikely to have an inbuilt dictionary like their grandparents, whilst native English speakers may have a natural leg up on ESLs. That's not to mention how, while the rules of these games may not change, their criteria for grading is. Every legal word in Scrabble is ruled by a dictionary. This means that if a player was born in 1945, it's unlikely they might recognise some of the more lucrative point scorers now legal according to the Oxford Dictionary, like Xennial or Trouserettes. A similar thing has happened to Wordle. To spoil a previous day's answer, many people I knew failed to guess tapir, a small pig-like mammal native to South America. Whilst many English speakers I knew in the UK and United States haven't heard of one, I imagine those who have grown up in these regions would have reached that answer sooner. The most successful Wordle players are informed by their backgrounds as much as their ability to use an internet browser, something that has become increasingly rare in games of all disciplines. Whilst Wordle is unlikely to change the games industry, I do hope that it gets designers to consider how much juice can be squeezed out of the seemingly mundane. Sometimes you don't need cutting-edge hardware to create deep strategic experiences. After all, Scrabble has been around for nearly a century, and continues to thrive as our language and other languages evolve. The same goes for Wordle, which, as long as there's hundreds of 5-letter words in the English language, is likely to keep appearing on our timelines. Its core appeals of simplicity, shareability and ritual don't just have to be replicated in derivative word games. There are plenty more things that we take for granted that, through a few small rules, can be turned into magic.